G'day, I'm Bruce, and in this video we're going to try and get this marketplace disaster running again. A few people had seen this thing in the background on a previous video and wondered whether we were ever going to get it out and see if it would go. We're back here today to see if we can. As much as this video is going to be a will it start video, it's also a lesson on be careful buying stuff off marketplace sight unseen. The story about this vehicle goes, we were looking for a 1 litre engine. Anyway, this thing came up on like a clearance sale, I suppose you'd say, where this person had these other vehicles and stuff for sale. And the cameraman said, well, maybe you should go and get it. So anyway, he rang the fellow up. The cameraman said, well, does it run? And he said, oh, it was running when parked. Yeah, so, you know, we assumed it shouldn't take too much to get running. So he asked a heap more questions about it, and we thought, oh, well, there might be some other parts on this Suzuki we might be able to use. So he gets a tandem trailer, and he heads off into the distance to pick this thing up. Anyway, he had to go uphill and down dale and, you know, up through all these off-road sort of places to get there. And when he got there, here it is on the side of this, just about on the side of this mountain, and he looks at it and thinks, oh, gee, this thing's not too good. So anyway, he thought, oh, it's a fair way to go. And of course, like probably most people, they think, well, we're committed now. We've you know, towed a tandem trailer for miles to get there. A lot of times these places aren't easy to find. It's okay if you live in that area, but if you don't live in that area, it's not quite so easy. So the cameraman thought, oh, well, I'm here now. So anyway, apparently it was on a hill like that, and somehow the cameraman had to get the tandem trailer and everything and, you know, get the thing on the trailer, and all that was all a bit of a drama. Anyway, he gets it back home, he looks at it and thinks, oh, gee, it's not too good. So anyway, it was just sort of shunned and just put aside, and we just thought, oh, we didn't do too good on that deal. No, we'll just put it out of sight for a while and try and forget about it for a while. It's been parked down here for a fair while, and until we did that other video the other day, and like we still knew it was here when we come down the paddock, and the cameraman said, oh, well, some people have, you know, have sort of said, oh, what are we going to do with the Suzuki? We should get it out and see if it will go. So here we are today. We're just going to have another bit of a look at this thing and see if it will actually go or not. But remember, the word was running when parked. So if you're looking at stuff on whether it be on eBay or whether it be on Facebook, and they say running when parked, danger. I'll do a quick walk around before we actually start work on it. You can see all these vines and everything are all starting to take over here, and you know, I can't even walk through them now. The vines, and there's some prickly thing there, asparagus fern that is. So I'll try and walk around through here. There's a wait a while there. You can see she's pretty well loaded with rust. I don't know whether it's been lived on the beach for a while, but a bit like a lot of the vehicles we get, this one's also got a name here, and this one's called Sea Breeze. So maybe they were just cruising up the ocean beach on Fraser Island many years ago, having a great time, driving through a bit of surf as the waves are crashing on the sand and running up and that, you know. Some careless people, they just drive along, salt water goes all over the vehicle. They think, what the heck, it won't hurt it. This might be the result of what happens if you do go driving through the surf. That's what it is, a Suzuki Sierra Ute. I don't want to break it. I'll try the inside. No, inside handle's gone. Oh, look at that. Is she going to snap off or not? Those hinges are fairly bending. Just have a look at the floors. There is nearly no floor left. It's just loaded with mosquitoes. There's heaps of them in here. They've made that their house. And I'll get the cameraman to have a look over there on the driver's side floor. How's this for a nice modification? They turned her into a sports version. They just cut the tops of the doors off. Yep, she's a beauty now. She'll go faster now, she'll weigh way less. If my father was still alive, he would have a laugh about this. And he used to laugh about Fred Flintstone. He'd say, that's a Fred Flintstone car, that one. You just put your feet through the bottom there and pedal and away you go. Yeah, have a look at the roof. The roof's just like a cheese grater. Well, we're right down here in the prime area for snakes, spiders and wasps. So I've got some Raid here. I'm going to spray a bit of that around. And if there's any critters in there, hopefully they might jump out and run away, hopefully. Rubbish sitting there. Anything could be living under that. Go up under the dash a bit too. Under the seat. Behind the seat. That many vines growing. There's quite a few vines around here. It doesn't matter, you think you're not going to walk on vines or whatever, but you're walking around there, and next thing, both of us have nearly come and guts us through this, so we thought, right, we'll hook a chain on and tow it down there a bit further where it's more out in the open. Rightio, we're just going to run a chain out. Hook around the front over here. Hook onto the back of the Nissan. Rightio, we've got that done. I'll go and climb aboard, see what happens. That seat's wet. I'm going to have to get something to sit on. Righto, you've got the towel here. It's probably had inches of rain on that seat, so plenty of vines. Rightio, if I can get in there. I think I'll leave the door partially open that way. If I've got to jump for it, I can. There's plenty of vines. Right, the clutch is on the floor. Don't know what that was, but well, it's out. I'm sure the roof or something got caught on a vine. I could hear this big bang. The whole vehicle shuttered, so I don't know what happened. Right, we'll unhook this chain. The other end off the Nissan. There might be a few less mosquitoes out here too. Back in there they were really hot. This model had one redeeming factor. Just have a look at this. For quality wiper arms, stainless steel. Look at that. What beauties. The later model Suzukis, they're all rusty on it, so how's that for quality? The whole rest of the vehicle would turn away to rubble and there'd be nothing left, and these would be just laying on the ground there in amongst a big pile of rust. Well, I think that bonnet might be rusted off. It is. There you go, there's the first spider, but it looks like he might be a dead one. The hinges rusted up, and from lifting up and down in the past, the hinges have just snapped off. That's what's happened there. That bit's just snapped off. The rest of that's sitting on the hinges. There's the dipstick. Yeah, it's got oil in it. Yep. Yeah, it's going to turn. Yeah, it's not seized, but fuel lines, and I could probably nearly go out the way because the carburetor's probably going to need something done to it. So we can just put our hand on there and choke it while we're cranking. Has it still got battery leads? Oh yeah. Someone's put big battery leads on it. Yeah, so the other Suzukis have got small battery leads on them. We might be able to get the battery off the back of the fire truck. That radiator there's totally cactus, I'd say, but the air fins have all rotted out, but maybe the water tubes are still holding water, maybe. I'll just pull this cap off and have a look. No sign of any water in there. They've already had the air cleaner hose off here, so I don't know whether any water would have got down the motor. A few holes in the bonnet. So that's a sign they've had some sort of problem with the carburetor or whatever. But remember, running when parked. Carburetors on these can be very troublesome too. They've got a fair few bits and pieces in them and diaphragms, and there's a fair bit of junk in these carburetors. And one of our other Suzukis was running pretty terrible, so we got a rebuild kit off eBay, pulled it apart, went to put the rebuild kit in. I reckon some of the diaphragms look like a kindergarten child had cut them out. They were that poor. Anyway, some of the stuff I had to reuse. Some of the stuff in the new kit was just that shockingly built. So anyway, I put it all back together, and it runs possibly a little bit better than what it did, but still far from running perfect, that's for sure. We'll see what's in here. Bit oily and fatty on the bottom side, but I suppose it still has got a cartridge in it. That's something. I have seen bombs before where they just don't have anything in there. They think, oh, air cleaner's blocked, we'll just dump it and run with nothing. Yeah, will that fit back on? I'll better put it back where it came from. It must have that's better. Yep. Many years ago when they had the little two-stroke ones, and people would be driving around in them and they'd be going, brrrr, ning, 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 brrrr. Then you had, I don't know, they were only 540cc engines in them. They were little flea bites of engines anyway, and there was usually a coil of smoke coming out the back of them. And some people reckon, oh, they're only Mickey Mouse cars, those. You know, they won't last long. People won't buy them. But they were getting around in the town I lived in. Yeah, so as time went by, into the 80s, more and more of them were out there. They went from two-stroke to four-stroke. The engines got probably twice as big or better. Then all of a sudden, the hire mobs had them. And they'd hire them out. People driving Fraser Island, and they'd be driving through thick sand and up sand dunes and everywhere. I'll spray these couple of nuts here and see if I can get this air cleaner cylinder out of the way. While I'm here, I probably should put a bit of spray on a few parts on that carburetor. Don't know whether the throttle's going to be still working or not. Not sure if that's the throttle or the choke. There we are, there it is down there. it's still free. I'll even put a bit down the throat around where the choke flap is. It's another place they can seize up. I guess that's probably the other bit of throttle there. Just have a look at this for rust. The whole pedal is ready to tear out of the floor. Super rusty. I'm just putting a bit of stuff on this throttle cable here, so we don't overstrain the pedal, otherwise the pedal will just fall off the floor. Then we'll have no throttle. I'm just going to put a bit of WD-40 on these door hinges. You can see them bending on the body there. It's nice to have doors that you can get in and out of too. If you're inside there and a big spider looks like running over you or something and you want to bail out with your can, or a brown snake. Give it a shot down through there too. They feel like they're ready to break. Right, we'll go around the other side and I'll give it a bit of WD-40 as well. This side's probably worse than the other side. I've just got this Abra net here. Trying to clean this battery terminal up a bit. These things have really got some bite about them. I don't know how many grit this one is now. It's probably only about, might be 36 grit maybe. Doesn't look too bad. The other one. Here we are. Just wind that up a little bit tighter. Maybe a little bit more. Nearly got it. One of my viewers said, get a plumber's brush, like they use for cleaning pipes. I thought, oh, well, I've never heard of that before. So I went to the plumbing shop and I said, do you have a brush that you'd use for cleaning inside copper pipes? And they looked at me, no, I don't know what you're talking about. So that was the end of the plumber's brush idea. You can see there now they've gone from being very corroded to having a little bit of shine about them. Get that done. Yeah, the terminals look pretty junky. I don't really like that style of terminal at all. It's going to sit down a bit of a lean too. Now, that's positive. That's negative. Positive is always a bigger one. And here's something ticking. Might be a relay or something. Might even be in the carburetor maybe. Something there's drawn a couple of amps. I'll just check that is in neutral. Yep, that's definitely neutral. What have we got for a key? There's our key. What a weird looking key. Be careful. Oh yeah, well it must have been turned on. When is the fan going to turn? Here we go. We'll see if it's going to do anything. Yep, it's going to turn over. Sometimes. Right, that's something then. That is something. Next up, I'll get rid of the air cleaner out of the way. That way, if I want to work the choker, I can just jam my hand over the end. And somewhere there, we're going to have to look at the fuel line setup, and I'll try and put my fuel tank onto the suction side of the fuel pump. I think might be the easiest way to go. Well, here's our fuel tank cap. Smells pretty old, which I suppose is only to be expected. Thought that might have been full of rust in there, but might be a bit of rust or dust in there, but it has got a tank there, but things like that, they're really quite questionable whether they've got, look at the rust on the top of the tank there. It is covered by the tray, but then water can get down between the tray and the cab. If we use our own fuel tank, I've got the priming bulb on it too. I can force juice through the through the fuel pump up to the carburetor with the bulb on the priming thing on the line on our outboard fuel tank. Certainly quick. You can see there now the access to the carburetor is a lot better. Well, that's on the pressure side. So it's better be this one here on the suction side. There's some rubbish around there. Right, he's off. I'll keep it facing down. Right, we'll tuck that out there. Where can I put that? Something out the way a bit. I might have to cut a bit of that hose off because I think that's going to be too big like that. Yeah, I probably should cut a little bit off of that. I know, we'll just cut a bit off of that. Back to about there. The clamp there, I'll turn that around. Look, is that tight on there? I don't think we'll even need the clamp. Right, next up. It'll probably flood, but I'll have a little dinky hammer there. I'll get this little dinky hammer, and I'll be able to tap the carburetor. And if the float and the little pivot bar are half seized up, or the needling seat, or all of the above, as the fuel goes in and the float's trying to rise, I don't know where all the fuel's going. Before we get too carried away, I'll add some water to it, just so there's some water there to lubricate the water pump seal. There's a spider running around there. Yeah, like some people say, oh, you should be putting coolant in. Well, it's disappeared. Look at it. See, if we would have put coolant in, you'll have a hole in the Welsh plug there for sure. Yep, there's a Welsh plug leaking there. So we would have just wasted our money on coolant if we would have just poured coolant in. The easiest way might be for me to choke it, to just put my hand over the end of the carburetor. Starter motor's nearly jamming on the thing. Maybe it's going tooth to tooth. That sounds terrible, that starter. Well, he tried to go pretty quickly. Look at that. Sucked that hard, it sucked a hole in my glove. Must have a bit of compression there. There must still be some rings on the pistons then. It wouldn't have done that. Yeah, I'll try it at idle. The throttle was stuck open a bit. Listen to that. Have to give it a few revs, never going to idle. Oh well, see if it'll take any more fuel. It felt like it had air. Well, it did have air in the line when I started, and I can feel it. Feels like I'm maybe this thing's not real great either. Where are we going? If I can get the cameraman to come over, and once it gets revving, if he can keep putting his hand on and off the carburetor, it might help self-clean itself. The other thing that can be going on, if this thing here hasn't got power or a really bad connection here, I'm going to have to get something to push down on that. This valve here won't be, it's actually a solenoid. It'll have a little, what we say, a little shaft, a little spike on the end. And it's meant so when you turn the key off, there's no power here, and this thing will run back down and then shut the fuel off going into the carburetor on the idling circuit probably. And the other thing I could do is probably try and run it with the choke partially on. It might keep going like that a bit, but I'll see if I can get that thing undone, even if I just disconnect it and connect it a few times. Check there is voltage coming down that wire. If I plug this onto the side of the carburetor, it should be earthed. And if I come down here into this wire, I'll turn the key on. I'm just going to... Right, I've got the key turned on. I'm just going to check whether there's voltage getting to this little solenoid or this little fuel cut-off device on the side of the carburetor. Here we are. Yeah, it is getting power. Right, here it clicking. That shows that little gadget is working. There's a little pin on the end that goes in and out. Some of these older carburetors too, see how they've got this bung here? Bung here. Not all carburetors, but some carburetors will have the main jet in behind there. And if you're like Houdini or something, you can undo this, drain the fuel, and if you think you're really good, you might be able to get some sort of a suction device to get in there, suck the rubbish out of the main jet, or you might even, depending on whether it's got a hex on it or just a blade to suit a blade screwdriver, you might be able to undo that and pull the jet out without stripping the carburetor down to get the jet out. It's just another thing that some people had, which was an excellent idea, especially if you had dirty fuel or something and you wanted to clean your carburetor on the side of the road, you'd stand some chance. Otherwise, if you've got to pull everything off of there and pull it apart, not the sort of job you'd be wanting to do on the side of the road. I'm sure it's seized. It should be able to turn. I think the choke flap in it is seized. I thought if I could get the choke partially on, where even if it had a fast idle, we might be able to get it to run and drive. But the way it is now, well, the only way it's going to keep running, if someone's got their hand half over it, well, we're not going to be able to do that and drive it. So I'm just going to get a pair of pliers and put in there and see if I can loosen up the choke flap. I'm going to spray some more WD. Obviously this end of the choke shaft is in a dead end hole, so I can only lube the outside on one side. There we go. Put a bit more spray in that, might be able to wash the corrosion out of it a bit. A bit more on the outside if I can get at it. I've just got to make it so it will go fully closed if need be. I think it is. Well, that was an easy fix. They've actually got an offset shaft. If you can see in there, the shaft is more towards the top than the bottom. And when they're set like that, when they're revving, the vacuum will probably actually suck the choke partly open. I'll try and strap the fuel tank down onto the roof, and if I can get the choke to work good enough that it will run at a fast idle. It looks like the clutch pedal's halfway to the floor there now, so I don't know whether it's got a broken cable or a rusted out cable, or whether it's just seized. If I can try and free up the clutch cable, even if it's broken, I just want it good enough that I can start it in gear without using the clutch. And then if I can start it in gear and it'll run, I'll be able to drive it out of here. Can't strap it too tight, it'll fall through the roof. That might do. Yeah, next up I'll see if I can work out where the clutch cable is. The cameraman's probably going to have trouble showing that, but there's a lever there that goes into the bell housing. I'll put some spray around that to start with. Get that down into there without shorting on anything. That one, put a bit on the end of that thing just to help it a bit. Might save the cable from breaking. I don't think it is broken. I'm just going to squeeze the bottom radiator hose rather than take it off to raise the water level in the hope that that water will leak out the Welch plug. Now when I let it go, hopefully it stops dripping, and we're going to get some fuel tank repair 2-pack stuff you mash together and try and bung on there to seal it up. We just mashed up some of that fuel tank repair stuff, and I'm just going to shove that in there now on that Welch plug and see if that will stop it from leaking. It wants to stick to my finger better than the Welch plug. Can't really see what I'm doing, but it'll be a miracle if that works, because the stuff's old as the hills. I'm just going to see if I can work the choke from the inside. If I can work the choke from the inside, I'll get the cameraman to see if that choke is working. It is working, is it? Righto then. I'll give it a try on the throttle. Going good. Running pretty good, considering we haven't pulled the carburetor apart. She's a beauty, self-healing, very rare. It's pretty dark up under the dash, so I might be able to, I hope they don't have nuts on the other side. No, they wouldn't have. No, they'll be right. I'm going to see if I can spray some stuff in on the cable and the pivot point on the clutch lever. It's got a fair bit of tension on that. I'll have to pull the clutch pedal back. That should take the tension off that a bit by now. That's better. I've got no idea where it's going to, but the only other way is get a torch and look up underneath the dash. Yep, I reckon that might work. Well, cameraman's been up under the dash with the WD-40 spraying all around up there. He said there's a big wiring harness running right along. It's in the way, so he just had to guess it and just spray everywhere. But now it looks like the clutch might be returning. Before the clutch pedal was about halfway down and stuck. So it would be nice if the clutch works. I'll be able to use the clutch to take off a bit and get going, hopefully, if it's going to go. We've been mucking around with the clutch for about 10 or 15 minutes now. We're just going to check our Welch plug repair. What do they call them in some parts of the world? Is it freeze plugs? In Australia it's Welch plugs. Actually that's quite hot, so I don't know whether it's the chemical reaction or whether the block itself has warmed up a bit. There we are. We've just rechecked the oils out of caution. We'd like to try and put some more water in it now. I'll get the cameraman over here. You can see some of these tubes are blocked up. If the cameraman can get a shot down the radio there, you'll see some of those water tubes are blocked up. But they won't matter. I might have to get the cameraman to aim the nozzle down there if he can. Sure, that couldn't be full. There's that same spider walking around there again. I think that's fixed it. Look at that, as quick as that, it's done the job. This stuff is just magic. JB Weld it is. I'll turn that around so you can see the other name on it. And the cameraman just dug some of that out of there. It's had the cap missing off the top, so it was a bit on the dry side. And it's just like two ribbons. You can get it in ribbon form too in a different brand. And you just mash it together like plasticine. Just mash it together. It's just a dirty grey colour, a bit darker than that. And then we didn't even wait till the water stopped dripping out of the Welch plug hole. I tried to dry it with a towel, but it wasn't real dry, and it's probably pretty dirty in there too. So the cameraman mashed it together, and I just got it there with my thumb, just pushed it in. For a start, it wants to stick to your thumb, but if you can shove it into the the right place, and then just tamp it lightly with your finger so it's not sticking to your finger. And that's only been, what, 10 or 15 minutes since we've been working on that clutch. We've just poured water in there and it's not leaking. So that is really good stuff for anybody working out in the middle of nowhere, or doing a big trip around Australia or around America or around England, wherever you're going to go. You want to get yourself some of that, just chuck it in the glove box. And if you do have a leaking Welch plug or a leaking radiator even, if you could get to it, the tubes, you could probably mash that up, put that on there, it'll probably get you back home again. All right, we're getting ready to go now. I'm just going to put this small fire extinguisher in just in case she goes up in flames. I'll have that on board. And if I can get it to run and keep running, and if the clutch works, it might do something. There. Just like there's no spark. Well, that was a pretty wild ride. Plenty of rust falling out the ceiling and dirt off the roof, and she rides that rough, you'd swear the diffs were just welded onto the chassis. The springs and that must be that rusted up they won't even bend. Yeah, what a ride, eh? Well, I would have never thought that bomb would have ever run again. Dad would have said, what sort of a joker would have owned a bomb like that? What did he look like? Wow. when I was young, my father was really out to make sure I could drive a car, because his father couldn't drive a vehicle because he could work draft horses, but he could never pick up the knack of driving a car. So I think Dad thought, I've got to teach my kid how to drive a car. So from about 12 on, 13, 14, I probably would have had probably half a dozen different old paddock bombs, old Austin A40s and Austin A50s, Austin A55, things like that, anything that was cheap. Anyway, you know, a lot of them, they were just old rusted out bombs. I can remember the old Austin A40, the floor would go like that because the chassis was nearly rusted right through, but it never broke in half. But anyway, some of those old things were probably bad to drive, but I'd say this thing's probably worse than most of those old things I drove when I was 12 or 13. Well, when it first turned up, we thought, well, it really is a basket case, and we thought it will probably never, you know, probably never even run. But now it's still a basket case, but it has driven. So that's something. Amazingly, we have still got some water in the radiator, and if you look down here where the Welch plug was, there might be just the slightest leak right there where I'm pointing my finger. The Welch plug's in there, so considering how dirty and everything it was, and the JB Weld probably had a bit of age on it too, with the cap missing off it. Sticking throttle that wants to stick halfway down, I'd say not return. So there at one stage I had to turn the key off, or I thought I was going to run through the front fence out onto the road. But anyway, I'm used to bombs like that. So the other thing was I used to have to keep squeezing the priming bulb to keep petrol up to it, so I guess its fuel pump in there is probably pretty lazy or not working at all. For all those that made a comment on the video, it's not really the sort of thing I'd seek out to have a drive in, especially on a nice, you know, a nice leisurely drive on some bomb like this, but with no brakes or anything. But yeah, it was just amazing how something like this could still run. Just imagine if, you know, in another 50 years' time, if you tried to get some of these computerised cars to go, would they ever run again or not? Especially with the electronics. I mean, this thing's still got a carburetor, distributor. It's probably got an electronic distributor, but I don't know. It may have points in there too. I haven't lifted the cap, but everything was pretty basic back in those days. For those who commented, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I don't know whether there's any Suzuki fans out there or not, but I'll probably say that's probably the end of this video, and I'll be able to go and wash the dirt and rust out of my eyes. But yeah, it's been a wild ride, all right, and a bit of fun. So that's what my channel's all about. If I can have a bit of fun doing something like this, and hopefully you can have a bit of fun watching, that's what it's all about. So until next time, thanks very much for watching.